On today's show, we are joined by Carol Hefner, the finance director of the Oklahoma GOP. And she's explaining to us today who GT Bynum really is. On today's show, we unmask Tulsa's Mayor GT Bynum. Is GT Bynum a Republican, or is he an extreme liberal who is just telling you that he's Republican? Well, on today's show, Carol Hefner, again the finance director of the Oklahoma GOP, shares who Mayor GT Bynum really is and how he's connected to the extreme socialist left, including Michael Bloomberg and the New York Times. Jason, before we get into today's show, I have to ask you, have you ever been around somebody who pretended to be somebody who they weren't?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Have you ever been around somebody who was a pretender?
Absolutely.
Have you ever spent a lot of time with somebody who would just lie about their very character and the things they believed only to kind of fit in with a group of people?
Oh, I have, and the scariest part is when you don't realize that's what they're doing.
So on today's show, I think a lot of people who thought GT Bynum was a Republican may have their brains explode. But folks, listen, if you are listening to this show, don't just passively consume this information and believe it to be true. Do your research. Try to vet everything that Carol Hefner says on today's show, because the truth is what will set us free. The truth is what will set us free. We have to shine a light on this darkness and expose the truth about who Mayor GT Bynum really is and who GT Bynum really isn't. All this and more on today's edition of the Thrive Time Show on your radio and podcast download.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
Now, 3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here.
Yes, and yes! Thrive Nation, on today's show, we have an incredible guest who happens to be the finance director of the Oklahoma GOP. Carol Hefner, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you?
It's a pleasure to be with you, Clay. I'm glad to be with you and your listeners. Thanks so much.
Hey, you are legendary in Oklahoma. You've been standing up for the right things for a long time. But before I get into today's show and questions, I just want to know, what is your moral compass? Because we're in a world where you people, you don't know what their intentions are. You might hear people say, this is what I'm for, but it's kind of a veneer. It's kind of a motif. I'm asking you, what's the source of your motive?
Sure. A long time ago, I took a spiritual inventory, a spiritual gifts inventory. And one of my top spiritual gifts is discernment. Now, I've always had a very strong intuition, and my husband's always relied upon me for decision making, and he comes to me for numerous things. But he's always told me that I have a really strong compass, as you said. And I really believe that I am guided by that spiritual gift, and I listen very closely to it. And I just have the ability to size up people immediately and kind of understand the undertone, whether it's sizing up maybe their body language or their tone or just the words that they use. My background is journalism. So I'm very tuned in, and I'm very much a person that appreciates the spoken and the written words. So I pay attention to the way people express themselves. And it's pretty easy for me to discern if they're being sincere, if they're coming from the right sourcing. And often, people aren't. And sometimes they don't mean to be espousing the wrong source. They just don't know. So I've taken it upon myself to use my skills, whether they've been educational skills that I've acquired or just innate skills, to help people to understand and to navigate through and into truth.
Well, here is going to be my, it's like a Bible quiz here for you, okay? A little Bible quiz here for you. Proverbs 13:20 reads, "He that walketh with the wise shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed." I'll repeat that one more time. Here for folks, sometimes repetition helps it kind of sink in. Some people are driving a car right now. I'll try again. "He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed." So we talk about GT Bynum. He is the mayor of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yeah. And I keep hearing things And I go, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I can prove that. And then I look in the New York Times, and there's GT Bynum writing an op-ed in the super liberal New York Times.
Welcome to the New York Times. He's very much part of that group.
I see him in the Tulsa World saying he's taking President Obama's advice, very liberal. So I'm thinking, if he is a conservative in the Bible Belt of Oklahoma, why is he in the New York Times? And why is he talking to Bloomberg and he's quoting Obama? Could you help me understand, who is GT Bynum?
Sure. There is the ability for families to start to position themselves. GT Bynum is a result of that. His grandfather, as we all know, and those in your demographic of Tulsa know that he is the grandson of LaFortune. And so that gives him a unique entree into that community. And going away to Villanova to school and doing some lofty things that were expensive by standards kind of made him feel and positioned him further to become, and I think he studied political science, which to my thinking, political science really shouldn't be a major. I mean, it should be the byproduct of understanding history, the byproduct of understanding economics, finance, or anything that has to do with the positioning of America and who we are and what we do. I mean, it just doesn't seem like it should be an absolute major that you major in, but I think that's what he majored in. So he came back to Tulsa, and once he finished Villanova, actually, he went to work in Washington, D.C. for a congressman. Now, remember, he roomed with Mayor Holt of Oklahoma City, and I can delve into that further, and also Kendra Horn, who is still our congresswoman for the 5th Congressional District, being challenged by the great Stephanie Bice. So those three people together, it seems, have hatched a plan, and it's coming to fruition. And I could really go deep into this. It's going to take a lot to help you understand this.
I represent the people out there that took algebra 3 times, like me. I represent the people out there that maybe, some of our listeners, I would say most of our listeners are much, much smarter than me, but we're persistent people. A lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs, business people, moms, dads. And you just mentioned some names. And on behalf of most people, I'm going to say some of us we're not maybe as politically active as we should be. We've been politically apathetic for a while. And so I want to get into, you said Congressman Kendra Horn, is that correct?
Congresswoman Kendra Horn was the roommate of David Holt and GT Bynum.
Is she a Democrat?
While in Washington, D.C.
Is she a Democrat, Kendra Horn?
She is a Democrat. She's a full-blown liberal, Pelosi liberal. Her votes have been over 90% with Pelosi.
Got it.
She showed up at the president's State of the Union with the white suit on and sat with all the other ladies in the white suit. Didn't make a move, didn't twitch a muscle without the approval of wonderful Nancy Pelosi. Okay. She is guided.
So I want to make sure we get this. So Nancy Pelosi, a Nancy Pelosi Democrat, Congresswoman Kendra Horn is a Democrat. Mayor David Holt, for the people out there that don't know, we have a lot of listeners in California and Florida and all over the country. What's he the mayor of?
He's the mayor of Oklahoma City.
And is he a Democrat?
No, he is actually a registered Republican. And we see that more and more in some of these conservative states and cities. You know that you can get elected if you just put the R by your name. And that is actually what's happening.
Okay. And then Mayor GT Bynum, for people that don't know, he's also a registered Republican, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
True.
So, and you're saying that all of these people were roommates in college?
These 3 people were roommates in college. They are thick as thieves, and that is a euphemism, but actually very true.
Now, I don't want to make this weird, but I just want to. I guess it has to be weird. Okay, you and your husband. How long have you guys been married?
We've been married 36, almost 37 years.
How old were you when you guys got married?
I was 22 and turned 23 the same month. My husband was 29.
My wife and I, we got married when we were really young, 20 years old. I couldn't imagine a scenario where in college it would be like you and your husband and me hanging out. Or I couldn't imagine having like 2 dudes and a lady roommates. That doesn't sound like a very Republican conservative thing, the whole co-ed dorm. And at the time they would have done this would have been, late 90s or something when they were all roommates?
I believe it was in the 80s,
80s. This is some weird. That right there is weird. Okay, so that's
I mean, I find it kind of odd, but remember, Clay, we're coming from a different worldview. And so that speaks to their worldview. I'm going to put that out there first and foremost.
Yeah.
Now, you have to think these people aren't of like minds as we are. So they're coming from a place where permissiveness and other things that really float over and above what common moral sensibilities would be. And that's just where they are.
Now, there's this crazy book called the Bible. It's almost hard to pronounce because it's like it's almost controversial. You just even say it, people are going, "Oh, can you say that?" But the Bible, in the Bible,
most refreshing book ever written. It's refreshing.
I agree. Now, the book of James, it's all about doing stuff. James,
oh my goodness,
chapter
it's hardcore.
1, verse 6 through 8. It says, "But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering, for he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea, driven with the wind and tossed." It's kind of that double
Shifting with the sand.
the shiftiness. It says in James 1:8, a double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways. GT Bynum came out in the Tulsa World, and in the New York Times. Let me read this to you. New York Times.
Yeah.
I'm pulling it up. New York Times, GT Bynum. I know this is exciting for the folks watching a man Google something, but here we go. He says, an opinion piece that he wrote, he says, "I'm a red state mayor, and I ordered my city to stay home." That seems like he suspended the First Amendment right to peaceably.
Dictate. Yeah.
So he suspended the Constitution for a current situation. Whenever the Constitution was designed so that when things get rough, we go back to the rock. It's our principles, it's our tenets, it's our. Talk to me about the double-mindedness. Does that shock you that GT Bynum would be one of the most progressive Republican mayors, whatever that means?
No, not coming from the background that he comes from. I mean, it was a freewheeling, very entitled upbringing that he had. And then he goes off and is liberalized through college toward, in the East Coast, pretty much, and then goes to Washington because he studied political science, which remarkably, most of the political science majors are liberals in schools.
What is political science? What is it? I don't think people out there know what it is. What is it?
It's just a conglomerate of teaching tools enacted by liberals to be able to help young minds be formed and molded to be able to espouse socialist theories. And very few people come out of that particular major with a very strong sense of conservatism and freedom-minded thinking. So it's everywhere. The people that you really want to hire when you are a congressman, congresswoman, or a senator or woman, you want to hire those kids that are coming out of economics, that are coming out of higher thinking, that have been taught principles and understandings that apply to business and apply to the growth of a nation. They're not just thinking back and trying to recreate and massage history, which is what political science is.
Now we're going to go into a fast and furious 15 questions, and I know you're up for it. You're a high energy person, so here we go. You are the finance director of the Oklahoma GOP. What does GOP stand for? Some people out there don't know. I'm sincerely asking. What is GOP?
And I wish it was an NP because it's the Oklahoma GOP Grand Old Party. But you know what? We're not old. We are really, really fresh and thriving. Like your show's title.
There you go.
We are thriving. We're moving forward. We are a movement that really has taken on a fresh new application. And we're really excited about it. We're really proud of it. And I will say that as the finance director, I come from a business background. I have a food product company. I have a real estate company. We have other ones launching all the time. My husband's a geophysicist, so I understand oil and gas extremely well. And we have mineral interests, and I manage those and have a company that's dedicated to those investments. So I did run for office in 2010, lost by just a couple of hundred votes.
Come on.
Because Tom Coburn had to get involved and lent his support to the other guy. So it changed the complexion of the whole race. But I see that God had a bigger purpose in that. Sometimes unanswered prayers are awesome. And so I am a lot more, I would say, I don't want to use the word powerful because I don't really see myself that way, but my positioning is easier to get out and my messaging is easier just because I'm not an elected official. I'm not paid by
Right.
tax dollars. I am not elected. I'm not paid. So I'm free to say and speak as I choose. Even though I work for the OKGOP, typically the finance chair is a paid position, but I chose not to be paid for that purpose. So
I love it. Now, what do you do as a GOP finance director? I mean, what does your day look like?
I get to have a lot of fun. I am just a very, I guess I am an extrovert, and I think I measure 99% on the Myers-Briggs on that.
Yeah.
So it's pretty obvious that I'm okay with it. But I pick up the phone routinely, regularly, every day, sometimes morning, noon, and night, and ask people for money.
Yeah.
And it's not hard to do because once they understand the mission, then they're very excited to get involved, and they understand where we are moving the needle, how we're going to move the needle, how we're going to bring people under the umbrella. And I have to say that since I've been working with the OKGOP, which is pretty much March, we have seen our registrations for Republicans go way up while the Democrats have gone way down. So it's a benefit to our state to make sure that people understand what's going on with regard to our politics and what's going on, not just on the national level, but on the state level, and even more importantly nowadays, on the municipal level. People around the nation need to be paying attention to what's going on in their cities, because there is a very pointed and targeted attempt by the liberals to infiltrate at our education boards,
Yes.
at our municipal level city council and ombudsman's
Yes.
seats, and at the mayorships. So we need to be very much engaged. As a matter of fact, we have movements across Oklahoma right now to recall mayors and city council members. And guess what? They're going very well. And it's getting ready to initiate right here in Oklahoma City.
Now, this is going to get weird, but I have to do it. It's like when sometimes a lot of us, we're on a diet, we want to eat healthy, you know, and then we go, well, I'm just going to stop by Brahms Ice Cream and Dairy on the way home and just get some ice cream. I'm not going to eat all of it. I'm just going to get some ice cream. And then, 2 a.m. you wake up and you're like, wow, I just finished watching that Get Rich Real Estate show. Dodge that bullet. Didn't invest in that. I watched the 8-minute abs commercials. We're getting to 3 a.m. I probably need that ice cream. And the problem with eating all the ice cream wasn't that the problem started when you bought the ice cream.
Sure.
Okay. And then it just began. Pretty soon you ate the whole thing.
It's a slow creep. It's a slow creep, and then you're immersed in it.
And now you're waking up, noon on a Saturday wearing sweatpants at Walmart going, I shouldn't have eaten that. And then you skip the workout. Then you end up living in a van down by the river. But the point is, it started with you going to Brahms and getting the ice cream. What happens is liberals like to have these little, I call it truthiness. They'll say, marriage cannot be defined between a man and a woman. We just, that's all we're saying. Anybody can be married. No big deal. Then they say, we got to remove the he or she pronoun from the language, And then they say in California, pedophilia is really not that big of a deal as long as you're only.
It's a frog in boiling water. It takes time and the slow immersion into this it's a paradigm shift, and it gets people slowly indoctrinated into their mantra.
Right. And then it becomes like, this is how crazy it gets. Then it goes, well, even though Bill Gates, hung out with the most prolific pedophile in American history, Jeffrey Epstein, I know, but they're probably good. They're probably just having fun together. I mean, I know Bill Gates spent the night at one of his properties, but they're probably just good buddies. And I know Netflix has a special now featuring pedophilia type features and video, but it's
Netflix is also, their board is led by the Obamas. Remember that point too.
So I just want to make sure we're getting this idea. And then all of a sudden you wake up and you're living in a van down by the river. And I feel like we're right in the phase right now where we're seeing Oklahoma is going to be in a van down by the river if we don't get serious right now about what's going on. So I want to get into this. David Holt, GT Bynum, and Kendra Pelosi, or Kendra Horn, the puppet of Nancy Pelosi. They're college roommates.
By the way, we call David Holt David de Blasio Holt, so get that part straight.
Okay. Now, David Holt, who is he? Who is David Holt as a person? How would you describe him?
David Holt is a puppet. David Holt is being used by Bloomberg. He was selected to be on the U.S. Council of Mayors. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
Oh, yes, I am, unfortunately.
Okay, well, the U.S. Council of Mayors, he's actually on the board of trustees now. He's done such a great job for Bloomberg.
Boo.
So he has been tapped, and he is fully embraced and beloved, and goes to Washington to meet with Cory Booker for advice, along with GT Bynum, your other mayor. They love Cory Booker, and Kinderhorn gave him that entree. But when I say that strings are being pulled, there's a gentleman, I call him a gentleman, that's probably too kind a term, but he works as the chief of staff for Mayor Holt. He came from David Walters' administration. His name is Steve Hill. Steve Hill is an avowed far left liberal. He also is very close to Bloomberg. He is very tied into all the things left, and particularly Bernie Sanders.
Now, real quick, I'm so sorry to cut you off. I have to ask because, again, somebody out there just my job is to make sure we don't lose anybody. When you say Bloomberg, I don't think everybody understands, because we're in Oklahoma, that
Sure.
Bloomberg is super liberal, like very right. I mean, he's not conservative.
Super liberal, tied into the Bernie, the AOC, tied into the Tlaib.
What do you take? What's wrong with Bernie? Because somebody out there goes, I thought Bernie's just into volunteerism, because that's how he tries to He said Bernie's all about, I'm just trying to encourage equal distribution.
Bernie is so corrupt, but Bernie has a very strong compass as well. And his compass steers him far deep down into the Saul Alinsky program. And it's about breaking the will and the spirit, removing the monuments and the things that make up America's heritage and our identity through the times. And sometimes, yes, sometimes those monuments or symbols are reminiscent of times that we might want to be ashamed about, but they're there to remind us of what we've come through and who we've become and how much better we're becoming and how we're growing and becoming stronger. And it's just part of the story. But part of that is to what Bernie Sanders buys into is to remove our history, remove who we are, so that then we can be completely encapsulated, if you will, by this socialist ideals. It's very easy to do. It's like masking people. I mean, you scare the people, you take away their understanding of the circumstances, you feed them some false narratives, and all of a sudden you can capture them. And we have fallen for that, but I think people are starting to become wiser, and I'm very proud of them. But when you're speaking about people understanding, you've got to give people credit that they're just trying to get up in the morning, get their families fed,
Right.
get to work, have a job, produce for their families so that they can have a future.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of time and a lot of focus. So they don't really have the time you and I are giving to it right now.
Correct.
To focus in and dispel rumors, help them with misunderstanding.
If I hadn't done well financially and you hadn't done well, we hadn't been blessed, we wouldn't have sometimes the space or time to get into these things. You mentioned the mask thing. Dr. Jim Meehan is a top virology expert. I called him. I said, hey, Dr. Jim, medical doctor, I've got employees who are telling me that when they wear the masks, they feel physically sick. And we've had some people pass out. We've had people feel lightheaded. We had one employee call in to have a breath day. She just wanted to have a day off so she could breathe. And I said, hey, when you wear a mask, is it bad? And he says, sure. Clay, on the OSHA website, it states that if you have an oxygen level below 19.5% in a workplace, it causes physiological problems. And I go, okay, what is
These
that?
masks harbor bacteria.
Yes.
If you have got lung problems, you are doing yourself a disservice by wearing a mask for any length of time. And these kids, there were 2 children sent home from a school district here in Oklahoma.
Yes.
And the mother took them to the doctor because they were sick. They get to the doctor, tested for COVID, they tested negative, and the doctor said, no, they've got a bacterial infection born of them wearing this mask for 8 hours a day.
Unbelievable.
So it is a compounded problem. And do you think the Democrats care? No, because it's about the symbolism. It's about the control. And that is absolutely what's going on across America. And I applaud Idaho, if you're watching.
Idaho.
And South Dakota, if you're watching.
South Dakota.
Yay to you guys. Way to go to your states for opening up and disposing of these mandates and getting on with your lives. We are here to live. We're Americans, and we should embrace our rights. First, second, all of our rights should be embraced, and we should know what our rights are. Get educated, because, when people take the naturalization test to become citizens of America, there are things that we never even encounter. They are so well steeped in what it is to be an American.
Yeah.
My family came over 2 generations ago legally through Ellis Island to become Americans and to escape Muslim persecution. I'm half Lebanese. And with that, they embraced what it was to be American. They lived on dirt floors in northern Oklahoma, and they lifted themselves up by their bootstraps, just as Americans do. And they ended up owning the dry goods store, the mercantiles. They ended up owning a car dealership.
Amen.
They became successful. They never once whined about their condition or looked for handouts or charity.
Right.
We are resilient people in America. We need to get back to that. And for those people who have been here for generations, remember, your people got here somehow too. You were not born in America, likely. Your people were not. They came here escaping or searching for something better.
Yes.
And by you not embracing the right to vote or understanding what it is to be an American, you are throwing away your heritage. You are throwing away what your forefathers fought to either come to the nation or fought on this land to secure freedoms for you and your children. That is more valuable than any gold, house, money, car, vote you could possibly own. That is the most important legacy you could embrace. And you need to understand how valuable it is, because people are dying across the world to have exactly what we have. Even the poorest amongst us has more than 98% of the people across the globe. So to whine and complain about their condition in America is absolutely absurd.
I could not agree more with everything you just said. I will say on my Twitter page today, we posted a picture of the governor of South Dakota who's holding a copy of my new book, Fear Unmasked. And I'm telling you, that woman is absolutely resilient. She goes back to the Bible. This is so crazy. Folks,
Kristi Noem is one of the best leaders in this nation, and I look to see her rise, and I hope that she does, because she does it with grace and dignity, not for her own self-acclaim, but for the right reason, because she comes from the right worldview. She understands what it is to be an American, and she leads other people. You know, the best leaders are ones that can replicate themselves, and she's doing that.
Help me understand.
Testimony.
Help me understand this, because I want to make sure that we can replicate your understanding. I want to make sure the listeners get this. As Americans, we have, it's like a org chart. Okay, we believe we have certain unalienable rights that are given to us by God, and then the Constitution simply upholds those rights, and that so it's God first, and then you've got the people here, and then the people are giving their consent to be governed. So it's like God, then the people, then the elected officials. Am I getting that right?
You are correct. The elected officials are literally our servants. They are our employees. And if you look at it from this standpoint, when you elect, you're basically hiring somebody to work for you, to carry your voice so that you can get on with the daily task of living and raising your family and getting a job and going out and doing what you need to do on a daily basis.
Right.
So you're putting somebody in your place to take care of your vote. That carrying of your vote is a job. That is a job that you are hiring. However, remember this. Just like welfare, they are paid by your tax dollars. So it's kind of a welfare situation. And anytime they act entitled or self-aggrandized, like we see with Nancy Pelosi, look, her income came from the people. However, she was able to position her family because of her influence, because she had lofty ideas of who she was as a sitting congresswoman. And the people abdicated their responsibility as the employer.
Let's make sure you understand abdication for a second. There's delegation and abdication. Abdicate, if I understand this correctly, it's where, like, if you're a king and you say, I'm just going to give my crown to somebody else because I've given up. I'm done. And then delegations where you follow
up. Cast off or give away.
Okay.
Abdicating, you cast off or you give away. Who would want to give away their freedom? Who would want to give away their voice? It's basically when they cry, I've got no voice, it's because they haven't embraced the fact that they are the ones with the voice.
Got it.
Yes, they do have a voice, but it only comes through in government. It only comes through those elected officials. That's why it's so important to examine and research who you are electing. And let me say something else that we have a problem with in America today. We tend to elect our friends. Oh, but he's my friend. Oh, I've known her for 30 years. I'm going to elect her. She's my friend.
They're my
that
friend.
has gotten us into more trouble.
Yes.
And I have friends that run, and I'm quick to say, and they know who I am. They get it. I'm like, yay, you're doing, your civic, whatever it is that you feel called to do.
Sure.
But I'm not voting for you, not because I don't like you. You're still my friend. But I want to choose the right person to work for me as an employee. I'm the boss. My money pays them. They work for me. So I want to pick the best, the brightest, and the most capable. And if I can say it, if it's out there, the most incorruptible. That's why I love Stephanie Bynum. Incorruptible girl.
Now, what's Stephanie's name one more time? Some of our listeners are not familiar with her name. What's Stephanie's name?
Stephanie Bice, B-I-C-E. Oh, I think her sign's right behind me, right there.
Oh, nice.
She's running for the 5th Congressional District against Pelosi puppet Kendra Horn.
Come on.
Horns down. This is when horns down really matters.
Now,
so, yeah.
we're not supposed to vote for people based upon their being our friends. We need to vote for people based upon their values. I have a little theory. I'm looking at a picture right now of Kristi Noem, and I'm looking at you. I think it's the eyebrows. I think we should vote for you two based on the eyebrows. I think it's an eyebrow thing. It's you guys share the.
I'm not running.
If I had eyebrows like yours. And I was a female, I'd rule the world. I always say that's what's been holding me back is the eyebrows. Okay, so we continue. So GT Bynum, who is this guy and what is his agenda?
I can't speak for him. He speaks for himself, but if you listen carefully, that's one thing. But if you watch him carefully, it's another.
Oh, yeah.
You need to watch what he's about. Here in Oklahoma City with Holt, once we started seeing an influx of homeless coming from the West Coast, then the antennas went up. Well, when he first became mayor of our city, he got on a plane. Where did he go? He went to Sacramento, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle. And then he brings in Garcetti twice and brings Bloomberg in even more than that.
Can you prove that?
Hello?
I mean, are you telling me he brought in Bloomberg and he brought in Garcetti?
Yes.
Okay.
Into Oklahoma City. When I called him directly on his cell phone. And I said, David, what are you doing? Why are you out visiting these cities, these very leftist cities on the West Coast? And he said, well, I just kind of wanted to see what they were doing about their homeless problem. And I said, why? They should be coming to us for advice. Why are you going out there? We don't have that problem. Lo and behold, we had MAPS 4, which is a $1 billion package. He loaded it up with 16 different things just that everybody liked something. People, went ahead and voted for it because they liked one of the projects. Now, remember, these projects get done in succession, not all simultaneously. And who controls the purse strings? Yes, city manager has a hand in that. But David Holt can shuffle money around, and we have no ethics commissions at the local levels. Remember that. Tulsa, Oklahoma City, these mayors can operate under the cloak of darkness because nobody's watching. We don't have watchdogs.
I'm supposed to be meeting with GT next week. Dr. Zellner and
fun.
we're supposed to have a meeting. And I just want to print off a copy of the Rockefeller plan. I'm going to have a copy of it and go,
would you?
Why are you, I seriously am going to print it off. And I'm going, why are you implementing a Rockefeller plan that was created in 2010 that calls for the release of some kind of virus? It calls for strict quarantines and curfews. It's a printed plan. And I don't know what he's going to, I don't know what he wants to talk to me about.
Let me tell you what
I just want to ask him.
You guys have in Tulsa. What's interesting about Tulsa, you've got George Kaiser. George Kaiser and the connection there. You've got the Rockefellers. It's all about this banking industry, right? So there are deep ties and deep tethers. And we could go, this is a whole other show, honestly, that we could go into and would enlighten your viewers and listeners. But it is very deep and it's very wide and it's a little bit scary. But the only thing that the listeners need to know, this is the problem with giving out all this information. People have it. It frustrates them because they don't know what to do. People that care are doers.
What do we do?
It's like, what can I do to fix this?
Yeah.
So the way to fix it is, I want to give you a stat that's shocking. 25 million evangelical Christians are unregistered to vote.
Come on.
I'll say that again. 25 million. Now let's think about that. You've got the East Coast and you've got the West Coast. They don't typically reside on the coast. They're right here in middle America, right where you and I live, Clay, right where, between the borders of, say, Nevada and Iowa, and all the way up and down. So right here in the center of America, where we could really take charge and really make a difference for this nation, we've got people who are perfectly capable, conservative, and understand the value of life, liberty, property, the pursuit of happiness, the things that matter to a well-lived American life, the American dream. And yet they're not engaged. They're not registered to vote. So what I'm telling your listeners, if there's one thing that you can do right now over the rest of this month before the November 3rd election, is to get out there and get people registered to vote. If you know they're a conservative, if they're at your church, feel free to open your mouth and ask the question, hey, are you registered to vote? Hey, I noticed that your daughter or your son just graduated college. Did they register to vote? Get people registered to vote and then help them with their decisions. I put out at the beginning of every election cycle, the Monday right before the vote, I put out my selections, who I'm going to vote for. And the reason why people rely on me by the thousands now is because I research the judges. A lot of people don't understand how important and pivotal those judgeships are.
We go in there looking for judges and we're going, Rodriguez, that sounds like a good guy. Thomas, I don't know. I mean, so where can we see who you recommend we vote for? Where can we find?
Well, you'll find it on my Facebook page, and only because since my run in 2010, Facebook became a big thing.
Hey, real quick, I'm in Facebook jail because I put a link out there that a Yale professor by the name of Reich, he came out and said that hydroxychloroquine. It has
I put it out too, but I'm not in jail. I'm not asking for it, but I put it out too.
You gotta post it.
I've got the formula for the hydroxychloroquine, the azithromycin, and the zinc, and I'm telling you, it works. Let me tell you something about that. There are doctors in every one of these health systems that know the value of it and know that it works and it is not dangerous. There are people taking it preventatively for rheumatoid arthritis right now. They take it daily. Doesn't hurt anybody.
I got banned for that. I got banned for sharing about a drug that's been approved for multiple decades. So
exactly, it has been approved. People take it. They take it preventatively before they go out of the country to places that may carry malaria, and it doesn't hurt them at all. But what I'm telling you is these doctors know that. Many of the doctors are prevented and precluded from going out and speaking the truth because they can be fired, because the health systems that they work for are beholden to the pharma, to big pharma, and to the CDC and all these connections. And it's money, baby, money. That's the whole bottom line. And remember back when we were talking about the ventilators and we were talking about people dying and being counted as, there were people who were drowning being counted as COVID deaths. They drowned. They weren't even at the hospital. But yet, remember, that's $19,000. Bam. And remember, every time they use a ventilator, that's $39,000. Bam. Follow the money.
Follow the money.
If you want to beat them. Look, we want to beat them at their own game, right?
Right.
We want to win.
We'll win.
Right? We want to stop this. The only way to stop it is to vote, and to vote for the right people, to educate yourself. And if you're not educated, admit it. But go out and, if you know that somebody's running for judge, go out and research them. It doesn't hurt.
Now, real quick, I want to clarify this, folks, and I want to respect your time, but I want to clarify this. If we go to djvote.co/MG, it's djtvote.co/MG. I know someone's driving right now. Again, djtvote.co/MG. You can register right there to vote. Make sure you're registered to vote.
Right.
It's super important you do this. But we've never had an election where it's so clear who's in favor of what. The Democrats, California, they're in favor of legalizing pedophilia. They are in favor of rioting and defunding the police. It's not.
They are the party, literally now, of death and destruction to America.
It's so obvious.
Anything that they utter out of their mouth is a threat. If you don't vote for them, it's going to be worse. Hey, look, that's not true at all. It's going to be better if you don't vote for them, because there will be things to follow. We will shut them down. And my goal as the finance director for Oklahoma, one of my goals, I treat it like an army. This is like a military operation to me. It is, I have to build my army and I want to demoralize the enemy. And how I do that is I bring in the dollars, and I don't care if it's $5. Those people are just as valuable as the $500 or $5,000 giver. You join up at okgop.com and we take those dollars. I say I'm trying to lead this initiative. We create the messaging. We create all sorts of ways to get to, we have digital marketing now. It's not just mailers that come through your mailbox. But we have to put together the way for people to understand and to become activated, motivated, engaged, and make a difference in the community. And again, we're taking the OKGOP and we're stopping just the statewide and the federal level engagements. After November 3rd, you're going to see us working very hard on these citywide municipal initiatives, propositions, the election of city council members, and and board members to our schools. It's going to go, we're going big, and we need the help to do that.
OKGOP.com. OKGOP.com. I have 30 seconds. Two final quick questions.
Sure.
I'm crossing my fingers. I'm getting myself ready for the answer. I know Governor Stitt. He's a nice guy. I would consider him a friendly person I'm friendly with. Matt Pinnell. I went to college with Matt Pinnell, the lieutenant governor, you know. Can we trust these guys? Can we trust them?
Well, you know what? They're two different animals. Matt Pinnell's been involved in politics for a very long time. It has been his career goal. Then you've got Governor Stitt. He has built a company that's worth well over $11 billion now. So he's a businessman. There's a difference, and they don't blend well all the time. They don't see eye to eye on things.
Quick time out. You're saying, you're saying, I want to make sure I get this. You're saying, because the connection cut out just for a second. You're saying that Governor Stitt has built an $11 billion mortgage company. Is that correct?
Yeah. True.
And you're saying that Matt Pinnell's had political aspirations his whole life, correct?
Yes.
Okay, back to you. Sorry, just cut out for a second.
That's correct. And so there is a little bit of a dichotomy there they're not coming from the same place. I will say that Matt does a great job with tourism for the state. He's a great marketer. He is a great promoter. He does great things. He and GT Barnum and Bailey, GT Bynum have been friends for a long time.
No,
and so
come on,
he
Maddie.
supported Bynum in that mayoral election. And once again, there is my exact entree to present to you. You do not support people simply because they are friends. That does not mean they're the best person for the job. You are hiring an employee. So what I'm telling you is don't listen to political hacks. And I'm not really calling Matt a political hack. It's just that he's been in the game a long time. Don't listen to those people and take your cues from them. Oh, well, he supports this guy, or look to the business people. Look to the people who have worked in your community. Look to the people who have been instrumental in making things happen in your community, not from a governmental standpoint, but from a business and a community standpoint. Those are the people that really will guide you into understanding the right kind of people that will propel your economy, if it's GDP that you care about, if it's oil and gas, if it's manufacturing, whatever it is. Look to those people, ask them questions because they have opinions and it's good to hear from them. But also at the same time, making it a little more complicated, don't ever be a one issue voter. Look at these people and ask the questions to them that, where do you stand on X, Y, and Z? Make sure that they have they're well versed in understanding the issues that are facing Oklahoma, facing America. It's very important right now. Look, we cannot afford to be hiring people that want to just go put on some pretty clothes and get before a camera. We're past those days. We have to have people who have cojones. Whoa. Sorry, I said it. We got to have people who have some guts.
Yeah.
And they'll stand up to and they'll work for the people, and they understand their position with regard to what they're required to do under the Constitution.
Carol, I appreciate you for being on today's show. Again, folks, go to OKGOP.com, OKGOP.com. Someone says, I can't afford it. Here's a little pro tip. Don't buy a regrettable burrito this week. You can afford $10 a month or something. Afford something. $10 a month, $5 a month. OKGOP.com. And then make sure you register to vote. Carol, you're a great American. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom!
I can do this, and I will do this. This is what I tell myself each day. Times are tough these days. All you have to do is turn on the news to find out.
Issue that will trigger the next financial meltdown.
I'm not here to talk about plans to deal with this till 2017. I'm saying we've got a real problem.
Debt is crushing us, with the average American household owing $15,000 on their credit card, $33,000 in student loans. The number of people who work their whole lives and still retire with debt is skyrocketing. People don't even think it's possible to be upwardly mobile anymore. That's the American dream. They think it's dead. You probably know someone that feels the same way. But my friend, they are wrong. History shows us that people have always faced adversity and have overcome obstacles. So can you. John Rockefeller had to drop out of school at the age of 16 to provide for his mom and his siblings after his dad left the family to fend for themselves. But his adversity did not stop him. By the time of John's death, his assets were over $340 billion in today's money. Was his success a choice? Think about it. Oprah Winfrey was raised during legal segregation and experienced a devastating childhood trauma for over 5 years. She had no factual reasons to think her future was bright, but she kept looking forward and went on to build a media empire, becoming the first female African-American billionaire. Was their success a choice? And for me, I know your choice matters. Because of racial segregation, I wasn't even allowed to use the front door of the bank in Greenville, Mississippi. I remember the back door, but I refused to let that slight cause me to fail. Without the ideal family setting and making a living in the cotton fields of the Delta, I shifted my thinking, and so can you. I imagined possibilities that did not even exist at the moment, but they eventually became my reality. I became a Pulitzer-nominated author, an entrepreneur who helped to introduce Stairmaster exercise system to the world. Now the president and CEO of 2 small businesses and one of the owners of a bank that 50 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to even walk through the front door. The American dream is not dead. Let me say it again. The American dream is not dead. Maybe a jump start is all it needs. So was my success a choice? You better believe it was definitely my choice. You see, adversity for many of us is a catalyst that initiates the change. It isn't easy. It's not always fun, but it's a choice. You can do this. No matter what situation you find yourself in, you can maximize your potential. You will meet adversity. Trust me, it will strengthen you. You will fail. It will be lessons learned you will never forget. You will be challenged, but your creativity will amaze you. Get-rich-quick schemes don't work, no matter how enticing. But if you're willing to shift your thinking and make the choice to work hard, believe in yourself, and continually educate yourself, you can accomplish whatever it is that you have imagined. Just imagine the possibilities and be ready to work them into reality. You know, we're excited to help you jumpstart your own success story. Now roll up your sleeves. You can do this. Be your own dream come true. Welcome to Thrive 15.